Okay, for today I want to do The Shining just because it's October. I love horror and I've just always wanted to do this movie. What's crazy is this is probably my favorite horror movie of all time, and growing up I didn't really care for it. But even though I didn't like the movie, I would watch it pretty regularly just because of the way Kubrick shoots his movies. I just wanted to look at it. Just the scenes draw your eye. I just wanted to see it. So, so I've watched this movie throughout my life. Back when I didn't like it, now that it's one of my favorite horror movies, I watch it at least once a year. Um, I don't know what changed. Maybe I just grew up. Maybe I just saw how human a story it is, and just I'm more of a character person now. I just really like really good characters. And one thing about Kubrick, he didn't like boring performances, and he would make you do take after take after take after take until he kind of broke you down, and you would do the scene in a way that you wouldn't have thought of when you were all in your head. Now you're just tired and you want to get it done, and you try different things. So he always gets interesting performances, and definitely The Shining is one of Jack Nicholson's best, and he has many great ones. So yeah, so maybe it's the characters. I think it's just a real human story. Even though it's obvious that the hotel is haunted because Jack gets let out of the pantry by something. Um, you can still read more into it. I think there's a cabin fever element there. Um, Jack isn't coming along with his book. I think he feels like a failure. He talks about responsibilities, and I think he sees Wendy and Danny as responsibilities that maybe he's not really wanting, you know. So I think all that has to do with it. I know Stephen King hated this movie, and one of the reasons was Jack Nicholson. He said seemed to be crazy before he got to the hotel, but even in the book, he'd beat up a student, he'd hurt Danny. Granted, he was drunk, but that's no excuse. And in the hotel, when the ghosts start manifesting, they do give Jack alcohol. So, like in the book and the movie, he was never just like on an even keel. He was never this mild mannered, wouldn't hurt a fly person. So I don't get that argument with it. I can understand kind of where Stephen King's coming from because this is way different than his book. But I see it as better. First of all, we don't have the hedge animals. The hedge maze replacing the hedge animals was brilliant. Probably one of the most brilliant things Kubrick ever did. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the made for TV The Shining. You really don't want to, but watch that just for the hedge animals. There's no way to make those scary. I mean, it's embarrassing that anybody made something and called it The Shining after Kubrick. But anyway, if you watch the behind the scenes, like I said, Kubrick loved doing take after take after take after take. It's famously known Dick Halloran did like 77 takes of him telling Danny about The Shining to the point where he was exhausted, he was crying, just miserable. But what I've heard, I think it's the truth. Jack Nicholson brought Scatman Crothers onto The Shining. Kubrick wanted Slim Pickens because they had worked together on Doctor Strangelove. Slim Pickens was filming something else, so Kubrick kind of tried to stretch it out and get Slim Pickens to replace Scatman Crothers, and so that's why there were so many takes. Also, if you watch behind the scenes, I think he hired Shelley Duvall just to torture her because they treat her awful on the behind the scenes. I used to really not like the casting of her, but now, I mean, it's just part of The Shining. I'm just used to it. I just still don't buy that Jack would ever ended up with her, but maybe that plays into his, him being driven mad. Maybe Danny was an accident. He felt trapped. Who knows? There's so many layers you can look at The Shining. Um, really can't talk about The Shining without talking about the sequel, Doctor Sleep. People hate on this movie. I dig it because I read the book, and the book was horrible. Terrible. Terrible. So I really wanted to see Doctor Sleep because in the trailers it showed the Overlook. Now Jack blew up the Overlook in the Shining book. There was no Overlook in Doctor Sleep. They went to the land the Overlook was on in Doctor Sleep. So just by the trailers, I knew Doctor Sleep the movie would be different because they're following Kubrick's movie, and the Overlook still exists. And when the director went to Stephen King, and the director of Doctor Sleep is Mike Flanagan, probably the only master of horror we have today. He's done Absentia, which you can hear about on the ABC's A Hidden Horror podcast. Go check that out. He followed that up with Oculus, which was great. He's got Hush, that's on Netflix. That's great. Before I Wake, I really like that. People hate on that one, but that also explains how he got Tremblay to play a small part in Doctor Sleep because they worked together on Before I Wake. Ouija or Origin of Evil, sequel to Ouija, 100 times better than the first Ouija. He also did Gerald's Game, which is a Stephen King adaptation. So he'd worked with King before. And he'd went to King and he said, look, we're going to stick to your book for like the first like 2 acts of the movie, but the ending, we got to address Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And Stephen King took a day and he came back and said, okay, all right. So yeah, people hate on Dr. Sleep, but you got to understand the book was terrible. Flanagan took a turd and polished it into the best film it ever could have been. And actually, in my opinion, made an acceptable sequel to The Shining. And a big part of that is returning to the Overlook and having those flashbacks and just seeing that hotel and remembering The Shining. A lot of people got mad because Henry Thomas played Jack Nicholson in Doctor Sleep. A lot of people wish they would have de-aged Jack Nicholson. Yeah, that would have been cool. But as we all know, Jack Nicholson is not doing well. And I don't think he could have made a decision in his state because I believe he has dementia or Alzheimer's. They would have had to go to his estate, and I don't know. I just don't. I feel like the actors should have a say, and if they're not in the right mind, I think the director, Flanagan, really made the right choice. They gave Henry Thomas enough, like eyebrows and stuff where you realize it's Jack, and I had that moment I had in Split when I saw Bruce Willis, and I was like, holy crap, this is a sequel to Unbreakable. So I accepted it. I guess I'm just not as picky because I did read the terrible book, Dr. Sleep, and was real appreciative of the movie that Flanagan gave us. So I know I'm here to talk about The Shining, but A, I wanted to talk about Dr. Sleep. B, I wanted to plug my friend's podcast, ABC's A Hidden Horror. Go check it out. Absentia, first episode. And I listened to that podcast. I bought the movie Absentia. Been a Flanagan fan ever since. It's great. So yeah, you'll find some cool hidden gems on that podcast. But anyway, back to The Shining. So many scenes that are just classic now. That are anytime you think of The Shining, you think of the twins, the elevator, all that. There's only one kill in the movie, and that's Dick Halloran. So yeah, I mean, it's all about mood. It's all about character. It's all about suspense. And it's all about dread. And it's just done perfectly. I really wish Kubrick would have made more horror. And I think the closest we get is this sci-fi movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, other than The Shining is horror. And I love 2001: A Space Odyssey, probably my favorite sci-fi film. So yeah, just for Kubrick alone, like I said, even when I didn't like the story, I loved the look of the film, the aesthetic of the film, even the mood of the film. So I'm sure everybody watching this has seen The Shining. If you haven't, watch it. Put it on, turn out all the lights, hide your phone, just look at nothing but the TV screen. Don't, you know, don't let anything distract you. Even if you don't like the story, I guarantee you'll like the visuals, you'll like the mood. 5 stars, highly recommend. Check out The Shining. Thank you for watching my video. Please like, comment, and share, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you.